Greetings, BUSN 1360 Software Applications for Business. I'm Dr. McGrory, and I'm excited to introduce you to PowerPoint Chapter 1. You've worked hard throughout our term, and you've learned a lot with Microsoft Word, you've learned a lot with Microsoft Excel, and now you're going to learn a lot with PowerPoint, which is a really fun business tool. That's right, a fun business tool. So let's jump in and get started just as we do with Chapter 1. Now, I have already opened up the instructions, and of course, you know, I've already downloaded my files and saved them in a neatly organized way to a PowerPoint 1 folder. So I'm going to go ahead and pop open these instructions. And we always start with the project description. This project description describes a career services and employment department, and you're going to create a presentation that you share with others, and perhaps they've sent you some thoughts that they want included, and ultimately you're going to create a presentation that everybody in your department will use. That is a great application of this, and I want you to expand the use of this as you think about you could use this as a way to present your business idea and to collaborate among teams of any kind within any organization. So this is a really useful tool, and you're going to learn a lot as we go through this. Now, you know, step 1 is to open up the file, which begins with your last name. I'm going to go ahead and do that because you're probably going to be a little surprised, I think. Here's my PowerPoint 1 folder, and you noticed as you downloaded those files, there were a lot of files this time. Well, that's okay. We're just going to go through it one at a time as we do. Let's see, have the instruction file, you know, you have the PowerPoint file with your last name on it. You also have another PowerPoint file, and so you may correctly be assuming that one of your coworkers or team members, right, sent you these ideas in a PowerPoint that you're going to add to the one that you're working on. So you're going to combine work. Very useful feature. You have some pictures that you're going to insert as well. But when I open up, I'm going to double click on this PowerPoint file to open it up. You might be a little surprised because it looks empty. Well, it's important that you start with this particular file because it's coded to you. So when you submit this into the grader for that automatic grading, you don't want it to think that you cheated, right? That you copied the file from someone else. So it gives you the starter file, which is uniquely coded to you. So here it is, and it's blank. Let's just jump in with step number 2. We've completed step 1. Let's jump in with step number 2. And this is where we're going to apply a theme. We learned about themes in Word. We looked at them a little bit in Excel, applying themes to tables, for example, and styles. This is going to make all of this work come together consistently. We have a Word report, we have some Excel data, and now we're going to add to it our presentation. And we're making everything look very consistent across. So where are themes? You may remember now. They're under design, and they want us to show the Berlin theme. Well, I have a lot of themes here. I can expand these, and you know, you hover over them until you get to this Berlin theme. Now, if you don't find it, and you see what it looks like here, if you don't find it, then you can go down to Browse for Themes, and this is one of the themes that they supplied. So that all you would do is browse, go to your folder, open that theme. I'm going to go ahead and click this, Berlin. And they also tell us not to use this orange color. Oh, you see the design. Oh, isn't that pretty? You see how fun PowerPoint is? They're suggesting some designs that we might like. I'm going to close this. Certainly something you can explore. And when I picked this theme, within the theme, I have some color variants. So see how it's still consistent and it's still the same styling, same theme? Well, they want me to use this blue one. This is the second one. Goodness, that design is really wanting to help me, and I really want to click on this pretty fireworks one. I'm going to close that again. Save that because that's actually step 2. And let's go back to step 3. Let me scroll down just a little bit. On step 3, it says next you're going to create the title slide. So on slide 1, we're going to set in our placeholders, job search strategy, and then we're going to create this subtitle, Career and Employment Services. So back to my PowerPoint, and just as they instructed us, double check your spelling as usual. I need to double check mine. So there we go. Save that. Isn't this fun? I mean, we're just going through this. That was step 3. On to step 4. Now we're going to continue building our PowerPoint, so we're going to add another slide. This layout for this particular slide is going to be what they call title and content, and we're going to add a title. It's going to be called Overview, and then we're going to start putting in the bullets, and they're telling us each bullet that we're going to put in. So let's go back to our PowerPoint, and I guess you could just go up and say insert. I kind of get in the habit of clicking over here in this little thumbnails area below, because this is my insertion point, and we've studied insertion points a lot, and that is just really clear to PowerPoint. Hey, I want this new slide inserted here. So on the Home tab, notice you might think insert, but this is where I can insert a new slide. And the type, see how underneath each slide there's a different type? This is the one we want, title and content. It's probably one of the most popular slide styles that you've seen, or layouts that you've seen. So here it is, and in the title they said they wanted us to put overview. We're going to start out telling our audience what we're going to tell them. You know, what's the old adage? We tell you what we're going to tell you, then we tell you what we just told you. That's how we collectively present to people, and it's how our memories focus in on the important things as we start out with that. So you want to learn more than just PowerPoint. You want to practice good concepts with your presentations. So underneath this, I'm going to start out, and I've got career. This is my first bullet. Career and, did they type? No, they did the little and sign. Career and Employment Services Center. Then we're going to press enter. That creates a new bullet. I'll tell you a little key here. If I press enter again, did you notice that the bullet disappeared? So if I want to skip a space, don't worry about that bullet, because PowerPoint will understand what you're trying to do. I'm going to backspace until I get back up on that second line, because I was just demonstrating for you. It's all, and I'm watching my capitalization here to make sure that the grader, oops, I said that, to make sure that the grader grades me correctly. So it's all about networking is all capitalized, because this is a subtitle that I'm going to present later. I hit the enter key again. Okay, again capitalizing, because these are topics that I'm going to introduce later. And then I'm going to continue with their list that they have in step 4. Now that I have each of those items typed in, I want to double check my capitalization, just double check everything. That looks good. I'm going to save that. That was step 4. Let's go back to our instructions. Scroll down a little bit. Look, we're almost at the end of the first page, and we're already having fun. On step 5, they are saying we're going to reuse some slides. So remember, we saw that they provided us with another PowerPoint presentation. Again, this might be from a different speech that you've given, different presentation, or it could be that a colleague went ahead and typed some things up, put them all into PowerPoint, formatted them as they would be, but now you're going to combine them into a single presentation. So it says we're going to reuse the slides from jobs, and this is what a PowerPoint extension looks like. Remember, we've talked about .docx. And in Excel, we said it was .xlsx. Now we're seeing PowerPoint, which is .pptx. And what does that tell again? That tells the computer, hey, use PowerPoint when you open this file. That's all it says. So that when I double-clicked it, it said, oh, I should use PowerPoint to look at this. Okay. It does tell us now there's an extra step. Uncheck the Use Source Formatting checkbox in the reuse slides. So make sure that it takes on the formatting of our current presentation. Well, let's just take a quick look at this. You don't have to do this. This is just something I'm demonstrating to support your understanding. So here's that jobs PowerPoint. As I open it, okay, first of all, how many slides do I have? Down here at the bottom, I have 9. So I'm going to bring this in. And perhaps my colleague said, here's how I've done this PowerPoint in the past. And they just gave a very simple presentation. They didn't use a lot of color, that type of thing. That's fine. But when we pull this into our presentation, if we don't uncheck that box, it would keep this formatting, and it would look strange because we would go from our beautiful, colorful formatting to this kind of stark formatting. So you just don't want things to be mixed and matched like that. So we're going to tell it to format in the same way that our original presentation is. So that's what it looks like. We'll see what it looks like after we import it. Look, it even has speaker notes, all kinds of things in here. Our colleague was nice to us. They did all kinds of work. Or maybe we did, because we've given this before. So we are going to reuse the presentations, and we're going to insert them after the slide number 2. So again, my habit is to click and make a clear insertion point so that there's no misunderstanding where I want this to be inserted. And there is a new feature on this home tab with PowerPoint 2021, and that is that the reuse slides is its own button. And that's because it's just so common. We all have what they call slide decks now. They'll say, this is your slide deck. Would you like to use some of the slides from my slide deck? So I'm going to reuse those. In older versions, it was under new, and in fact, you can still see that it's down here, reuse slides. So just a little overview for you. Click reuse slides. And here our slides open up over here to the side. Now, a nice thing is, since I already double-clicked that jobs presentation to open it and show it to you, look at that, this is cool. It showed me basically thumbnails, and now it's collapsing those. I actually would not have to browse to it because it remembers that that was the last thing that I opened, but the instructions do say that we should click on Browse, and make sure it's remembering this because this is where I just opened the PowerPoint from, but make sure you're in your correct folder and that you locate jobs. Yours will probably, by default, it will not display the .pptx, so yours will probably not display that. Select it, open that. So now it's open, and I've got it all, and look at, here's all my slides over here on the side, and you really see that formatting, don't you? You see how stark it is, which is fine. That would look great in a, in a PowerPoint on a big projector. It would be very easy to read. Notice that at the top it says to use the source formatting, but I don't want that. Uncheck that. Now, how do you want to insert them? If you only wanted to insert one slide at a time, do you see how there's an insert slide button next to each slide? I'm just going to scroll down. So you see that? Well, up here on the top, there is an insert all button. So I'm going to do that because we do want to insert them all. In older versions of PowerPoint, you might be familiar with that you right-click on slides to insert all. But in this case, they've got a nice little button here. And because we unchecked this box, use source formatting, it used the source. It did not keep its original formatting. It's using the formatting from our presentation, which is that Berlin theme. Remember I said we had 9 slides. We had started with 2, so I can see I have 11 now. That's good. Excellent. I've got all these are selected. I'm just going to click one, and I'm going to click on Save. And now that I've imported, I don't need to do this reuse slides, so I'm going to close that to give myself more space. Save that. Let's go back to the instructions. Step 6. You realize that you want to rearrange the slides, and so we're just going to do a little cleanup. Now, there's multiple ways to do this. In PowerPoint, I'm returning to PowerPoint, they said they wanted me to delete slide 4. Well, that's easy enough in this thumbnails view. I can click on it and literally just press the delete key on your keyboard. And did you see it change? the next change they want us to do, I'm just scrolling down a little bit, is they say take this slide number 7 and position it so that it is slide number 6. In other words, you can just press and drag, whoops, I'm sorry, I drug it by accident. You can drag it up before slide 6. Now you can do that if you're kind of concerned with your dragging and dropping abilities. And we do have selected slide 7. This is the one that says create a personal brand. Another thing that you can do is just right click on that slide, cut. You can scroll to whatever part of your presentation you need to go to insert it. And then again, that insertion point, I like to click very clearly. This is where I want that inserted, and I'm just going to paste. See how it is now slide number 6? Now you may be thinking, and another perfectly great way to do this is that you could come down here to these buttons in the lower right corner, and this is a fast way to go to the slide sorter view. And as the name implies, slide sorter is where I can just see all my slides as if I've got them laid out on a table or laid out on the floor, which is what I used to do, and then you can just reposition them. This one would look better here, and this would look better there. So if you're going to be doing a lot of changes, this really is a great way to view these. Now I can go back just by double clicking any of my slides. So here I'm back in what they call the normal view. So remember, we have these buttons just like Excel. Didn't we learn in Excel that we have a quick way to switch between views down here at the bottom? So we're building on that skill now in PowerPoint. So that concludes step number 6. Save that. Let's go back to our instructions. We're at the end of the first page already. So let me scroll down and we'll start the next set of instructions on page 2. On step 7, you can see that they want us to change the theme color, and they actually give us the reason that this is to fit better with the colors of the college. Well, all organizations, especially large organizations, have colors that they feel are very unique to them. So maybe that's our intention here. Let's do that. We're going to go back to our PowerPoint and under Design. And remember that we set a theme, our Berlin theme. Then we chose a variant, and that affected the colors. But if I expand variant, I have more options. And the first one we're looking at is a color palette. And they want us to choose marquee. Now, here's something you have to be careful about. You need to go across and then down. What's very tempting to do is to cut the corner. Oh, and I should have known it's going to work that time. But as you try to cut the corner with your mouse, it will oftentimes change menus on you. So be very deliberate here. We're going to go across, and then we're going to go down to marquee. I'm going to select that. Oh, it reminds me of that monochromatic palette that we applied to our charts in Excel. So it's looking good, and see how it applied to all the slides. Well, I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go back to my instructions because that was step 7 on to step 8. Now, step 8 says we're going to use a very particular font, and it says we've noticed in the past that this font was easy to read, and we want to think about that. The point here is to communicate. So you don't want to do anything that causes your target audience to struggle with the information that you're trying to communicate. So Gills Sans MT. We're going to go back to our PowerPoint. This also is part of, think, design, themes, variants. It's something we're changing in our theme. So font, we want to make sure we go across and then down. And now I'm looking for Gill. So I've got, and the fonts that you have on your computer can vary. So it just depends on the kinds of things that you've installed perhaps over the years. For me, this one is second to the bottom. Click on that. Now what just happened is it changed that font for all the slides in the same way that it changed the coloring on all the slides. Save that. Back to the instructions. That was step 8. On to step 9. Now, step 9 has several parts here, and let's just kind of jump into it. One of the things that I'll caution you about, it's something that I've struggled with as I kind of went through this the first time, and that is picking up on these slide changes, making sure that you are affecting the slide that they want you to affect. So pay very careful attention to this slide change. So we're going to go to slide 4. We need to change the layout to this panoramic picture with caption. And they've changed this from the old version to this new version of the software. So we're going to look at that. You can maybe tell I'm a little nervous about this step. We're going to delete the subtitle placeholder, and we're going to change the height of the title placeholder. So multiple pieces to this instruction. Let's go back to PowerPoint. So remember, we've got to go to slide 4. So over here, just click on slide 4. And this is not the layout we want. We need to change the layout. So back on the Home tab, look across to Layout, and here we go. Perfect. It should appear right here, Panoramic Picture with Caption. Pick that, and you see the arrangement of my placeholders. And design is really trying to help us, and that's great because a lot of good ideas from this if you're designing your presentation. I'm going to close it because I need the space here. So here's my new layout, and they said to select this placeholder. Now where I'm trying to click is really the edge. I want the box. I don't necessarily want my insertion point flashing in there because I'm not going to enter anything into this. I'm selecting the placeholder, so I click on the border of the placeholder. Just like we did as we learned about charts, this is an object that floats above the slide. With it selected, I'm going to press the Delete key on my keyboard. Now the next thing that I need to do, and I found this a little tricky, let's see how we do here, is to change the height of the title placeholder. Well, if I click, okay, it's making it easy for me right now, and so that's good. But notice that my insertion point is flashing, and I don't want it to be flashing, so I'm going to click, see how my mouse changes. I'm going to click that border. Now it's selected, and I can adjust the settings for this object, this placeholder box. Here's my little trick if you're having trouble selecting this particular box. Your tab key. Did you see, and remember how we learned in our previous graders with Excel that as we were working on charts that the dots tell us what's selected? That's the same knowledge you're applying here. So when I tab, it jumps from one object to the next object, and these placeholders are objects. So little facts here for you along the way. With this selected, up here at the top, shape format is available. Click on that, come down to height, and they want this, I'm going to click in that box, to be 0.9. So 0.9, but 0.9. Press enter. Much better. Now my text is nicely inside of that container. That's really important if you start applying fill colors, for example. Save that. Let's see, now there were multiple parts to this, and as we go back to the instructions, let's just make sure we changed the layout to panoramic. We deleted the subtitle placeholder. We changed the height of the title placeholder to 0.9. Okay, I feel good about that. Let's continue on to step 10. Now they're telling us that they want to change some of the font sizes, and we're changing, and notice this, to slide 2. We want to make sure we get this change. So let's do that, and then we'll apply these steps. Back to PowerPoint. Slide 2, and they said on slide 2 the title. Now it's interesting here because they say change the font size of the title text, and what I would normally do is select that text, just drag across it. That might be different to the grader, than clicking the box. And there is a difference than clicking the text box, the placeholder. There is a difference because, for example, in this long bulleted list down here, I could change the size, the bolding, the color of just one piece of text. That's different than if I select the text box, the placeholder. In that case, any changes I made would apply to all the text in that box. So they did say select the text. Just a stickler for details here with the grader. I'm going to select that text. They want it to be 54. And they want to increase the size of the bullet text to 32. So that's nice and big. People can see that. I'm going to select all of this. And I'm going to change this to 32. And notice you have this little bar that pops up here. In the simulation, for example, that was very important. Now I'm going to pick 32. Now I can see, because I've made this big, I don't know if you'll be able to see this in the video very well, but my text goes beyond my placeholder. And in real life, I would stretch that to make sure that my text fit neatly within that placeholder. They didn't tell me to do that, so I'm just going to continue on. Save that. Let's go back to the instructions. Now they're wanting us to add emphasis. Let me scroll up. They want us to add emphasis to the word Googled, but they emphasize to us that we need to include the quotation marks on slide 7. And so see that slide change here, you really got to be looking for that. And then we're going to change the font color. So let's do that. I'm going to go back to PowerPoint. And remember, the first thing I need to do, even though it was listed later in the instruction, is change to slide 7. Now they're putting this in quotes because Googled, of course, is not technically a word, I suppose. In order to get that last quote, did you notice that it grabbed the space after it? Now, maybe that's fine. Word does this type of behavior. Sometimes Excel does, PowerPoint does. But they told us to select Googled and the quotation marks. They did not say to also select that space, but we've learned some tools that help us to be very precise. Do you remember holding your Shift key down and using your arrows? I am left arrowing and right arrowing, and can you see, with my Shift key held down, can you see that that is changing very precisely what is selected? So again, some skills that we started out learning in Word, we used a lot in Excel, we are now using in PowerPoint. Aren't you clever? Yes, you are. So I've selected, I'm being very precise, I've selected Googled and the quotation marks, and they want us to use the drop-down box. Now in the simulation, I believe they want you to use the little toolbar that comes up when you select, so make sure you're doing it that way in the simulation. But here with the font, they want this aqua accent 1 lighter 40%. Selecting that, I can see the color changed. I'm going to click away so that I can see it even better, and I'm going to save. And let's go back to the instructions, because we just finished step number 11. On to step 12. It says you have found images that you feel will enhance the presentation. Always we like to put pictures in there. So we're going to go to slide 4 and we're going to insert a picture. By the way, this can be a picture that you've taken with your cell phone. This could be your company's logo that you've had somebody maybe make for you, or that you drew and that you scanned or drew in the computer. Any picture that you want. And then we're going to apply a very particular setting, this reflected rounded rectangle. That's a style we're going to apply to the picture. So back to PowerPoint. Slide 4, make sure you click on that. And it says click icon to add picture. So that's what I'm going to do. If yours didn't, you may need to change and navigate to your PowerPoint folder where you saved your files. Here's networking. and insert. Nice. Now, because we selected that container, we used the icon inside that container, it fitted very nicely onto our slide. It kept the sizing very nice. So now we still have it selected. I can see that because I have the dots around it. And I have a picture format ribbon that has become active. And if I expand this, I'm going to look across the top. And which one am I looking for? Reflected rounded rectangle. So that is it. You see the little reflection that it's trying to show you, and the corners are rounded. Pick that. You can even see it. It's previewing it already. Doesn't that just look like you paid a lot of money to have someone do that? And this is all you. This is your skills that you're learning to use PowerPoint. Save that. Go back to our instructions. That was step 12. On to step 13. Look at this, you're going to crop a picture. So you're going to start doing a little bit of picture editing, and this can be so handy because you get that almost perfect shot, but you need to make some minor adjustments. So lots of steps here. I think on this step I've counted about 4 different things that we need to do. So let me walk you through this. This is slide 6 though. Make sure that you get that, not slide 4. So let's go back to PowerPoint. Slide 6, and we're going to insert a picture. So I have several icons here, not just one. The icon I want is this very first one on the second row, first icon that says pictures. This is going to look at pictures on my desktop or my computer. So I'm looking in my PowerPoint 1 folder, and this time I want to insert stand out. So insert. There you go. There's my picture. So far so good, but again there's more to it. So we're going to activate the ruler to display that across the top. Now I'm going to close this. Yours may already be displaying. If so, that's fine. If you do not see the ruler, I don't see my ruler, I'm going to click on View and Ruler. Now why are we doing this? Because we're going to crop this picture. So I still have the picture selected, and up at the top where it says Picture Format, I'm going to choose Crop, and they want us to bring this, see how the end of it is, you know, I can hover my mouse and you even see that red line right there. I'll move it a little bit. I want to get it to about the half inch, or quarter inch mark. So I'm in this cropping mode. So that means I'm going to trim this picture. Okay, so I've brought it in. I've just cut off that white space. I don't need that extra blank space there. Once I've done that, see how it remembers this? Now, here's kind of a thing that you've hopefully read a little bit about, which is if you just save this and email it to somebody, for example, they can actually, what would you call it, uncrop the picture to bring this back in. So if you don't want the person to be able to do that, you want to make sure that you compress your pictures. They have not told us to do that, so I'm not going to do that step right now. I'm going to click away someplace. Again, remembering that it's just affecting what you see of the picture. The picture is actually really still there. So there it is. And what else? This is a big step. Change the width of the picture. So I'm going to click the picture again, and I want the width to be 7 inches. It stretched it back out, but now it's not blank white space. Now it's actually filled with the people in the picture, which is what I want. So save that. Oh, we still have one more step though. We need to apply this reflected rounded rectangle just like we did with the other picture. So the picture is selected across the top. Isn't that pretty? And I select that. Save that again, because that's some great work. And that was step 13. Let's go back to our instructions. On to step 14. Now, there's a trick here in step 14 that I really want to emphasize to you. It has caused students troubles for many semesters with this. In this task, they tell us that we're going to take some plain text bullets and we're going to try to make them more exciting by converting them to smart art. But there's a key word here. They're converting it to smart art. They're not inserting. They're converting. So notice it says on slide 5, so we go to slide 5, convert the bulleted list, not insert. Convert. It is different. You will end up with grossly different results. Largely a blank bulleted list that sometimes you'll try to type things into, and the grader will then mark it wrong because you didn't convert it, right? So pay attention to that key word, and we're going to do it together. Let's just go over to PowerPoint. They told us to go to slide 5, and they tell us, and what works now is if you click anywhere inside this bulleted list. In older versions, I know that you had to select all this text. I say this because I know, despite all my tugging at you to use the newer version, especially with PowerPoint, where there's some cool new features, that you still may be hanging on to those older versions. But if you would, convert to this new version, all you have to do is click anywhere inside this text list. Now, I could present this PowerPoint. We would just have our bullets and we would talk through each bullet, but we can make it more exciting on the Home tab, not the Insert tab, on the Home tab. Go across Convert to Smart Art, not Insert, Convert. Click on that. Now I need a horizontal, what is this one again? A horizontal bulleted list. So which one is that? That's vertical. What about this one? A lot of verticals. This one at the end, see the boxes? Horizontal bullet list. Click that. There we go. Now, if you have this little dialog box that opens up over here, that's fine. Like we learned with other smart art in Word, for example, we can edit over here, or we can edit directly in these boxes. If you click off of the object, it kind of goes away, that little box. If I click back, it's there again. And by the way, can you see what is selected? Look where the dots are. The container is selected, and then, kind of like the charts in Excel, I've clicked it within this object to select another object. See the dots moving? Very important to pay attention to these things. Okay, so let's save that because we did convert that and it looks good. So let's go back to our instructions. So on to step 15, and it says we're going to apply a word art style to this to add an interesting text effect, it says. So we're going to go to slide 10. We're going to select the text questions and question mark afterwards, and then we're going to apply this gradient fill. It says gradient fill gold accent color 5 reflection word art style, and then even further we're going to take that same styling, but we don't want it to be gold. We're going to change the text to white. How about that? So we're starting off with a word style, and then we're going to use all the special effects from it, but then change the actual text color. So let's do that. I'm going to go back to PowerPoint, and they told me to change to slide number 10, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to select questions. Oh, now see, it's jumping. PowerPoint is to grab that space. The grader told me, the instructions said to select questions in the question mark, so I'm going to be more precise. I'm going to hold my shift key down, and I'm going to use my left arrow to just bring that in and be really precise. The grader may not mind. I don't know. I'm just going to be really picky to try to make sure. So, okay. So I have that selected, and then I'm going to go to my format, shape format ribbon. Right below that is word art styles. Click to expand, and I'm really anything that's gold, I guess. Okay, so on row 2, these are the gradient fills. If you look, like this is a solid fill, and then they have Those are solid fills, but down at the bottom, I think these are patterned, or some of them are patterned. But I want this gradient fill. This is on row 2, and it's actually in column 2 also. Gradient fill, gold, accent 5, reflection. Got all of those. So here's the neat text effect. It put that reflection on there. But they're concerned that this gold coloring may be hard to see since we've chosen a darker background. So they want to lighten that up so that our audience can see it. So up here at the top, text fill, and they want white number 1. Yeah, white text 1. So I'm going to click that. There it is. I'm going to click away so that I can see. Look at how pretty that is, that effect. That's a really cool effect. So I started with a text style, but I wasn't stuck with those colors. I can then start to make adjustments, just like we did with the theme, for example. Save that. Go back to the instructions. We're finished with page 2. On to page 3, and there's really only a few steps on page 3. Step 16 says that we want to add a speaker note to the slide just to help us get started, right? So here's slide number 1, and they're telling us what to say. I like this. I tell you something, a friend of mine told me one time, and we were both corporate trainers at this time, and she said that the first thing she always put in her speaker notes for slide number 1 was smile. And she might say, take a breath. Smile. Just that thing that's going to relax you so that you begin with a really great start. So let's do that. Let's add our speaker notes. Go to PowerPoint. Go up to slide number 1. Now sometimes you can already see the notes area down here at the bottom. If not, there's a little button down here, Notes. Click that. And it says click to add notes. Now if you watch my mouse, do you see how when I move my mouse up on this bar that separates the slide area from the notes area, I can press and drag so that I can see more of the note area. So if you need to do that, please feel free to do that. I'm going to click there and I'm just going to type exactly what they tell us in the instructions. Double check your spelling. Make sure it's all good. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go back to the instructions. So that was step 16. As I look at step 17, it says I'm going to apply slide numbers to all the slides, with the exception of the title slide. When I look ahead at step 18, it says that I'm going to create a notes and handouts footer, and I'm going to put this information in the footer. These two steps are in the same area, so let's talk about them together. Let's do these two steps together. So let's go back to PowerPoint. And across the top, I'm going to go to Insert because I'm trying to insert something. And I'm going to go over to, there it is, Slide Number, and click that. You see how nothing's happening, it seems like? Look down here in my notes. It's adding the number 1. I don't want that, so delete. Click into the slide area. I did that last time and I apologize. Click up to make your slide active. Maybe change that slide. You don't have to be on slide number 1 because we're affecting all of the slides, so it doesn't matter which slide you're on. Now, let's be on the Insert tab and let's go to Slide Number. Notice, and it's to me very difficult to see, that there are two tabs here. There's a Slide tab and there's a Notes Handout tab. I'm going to start on this Slide tab, and they said that we wanted, this was for step 17, they said we wanted a slide number, but do not show on the title slide. So I want these two options to be selected. Now I'm going to apply to all, but it understands not the first slide. So we can see that. See the numbers? I can even see them on my other slides. And notice that for this particular slide, slide 3, let me show you this. Here's the page number. It's up here in this blue box up towards the top. But the page layout for page 4 was different, requiring that the page number would be in a different area of the slide. That's a great reason to stick with these slide layouts, is because then PowerPoint will help you manage those types of things. Okay, so not done yet. Let's go right back to where we were, that slide number button, because the next step, you may recall, step 18, said that we need to go to notes and handouts. And for this, they wanted us to add a footer. Now, notice that by default, or perhaps the settings already had for this template, a page number. If we wanted page numbers on our notes and handouts, this is where we would add it. We can add a date and time so that we know what is the current date and time that these were printed. So when somebody brings us something from 2 years ago, we go, oh no, that was our handouts from 2 years ago. So that's always good to know. But this time we want a footer, just something little. And do you see this interactive picture over here? It's showing us what it's going to look like. So if I deselect this, do you see that? That's where it's going to go, right in that little area. So I'm going to click inside this footer. I checked it and I'm clicking inside, and they tell me to type. Well, how about that? Career and Employment Services, and then we're going to apply to all. Save that. You know, you may be thinking at this point, I wonder what this looks like. What did I just do? And I think it is good to understand not just you did steps, but why did you do those? What if you need this in the future? When would you use this? And the only way you're going to know that is if you look at your work. So let's print preview just for a moment. If I go to File, I'm going to go to Print. Now, by default, PowerPoint is going to print each slide on a page. If you're going to give a 60-minute talk, you may have 100 slides, you may have 50 slides. That's a 50-page packet for each person who's going to get your handouts, right? Instead of printing full-page slides, click on that drop-down box, and here are the options. We could print 2 slides per page. We could print 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Now, I'm going to tell you some of my personal preferences very quickly because this is important. You want to give a good presentation. I've presented my resume in job interviews before. I've actually been asked to do that. So something you may want to consider. 2 slides, it doesn't give me a lot of traction because there's so much white space around the slide. The number one question I get is, can you change that? You can. It would be more advanced. You have to go into like the master of these slides. But here's what I want you to notice. I want you to notice that there's a date here. Remember we said that was an option. Here's that footer that you added. Here's the page number that we looked at that was there. And it's actually even providing us a number of which slide we're looking at. Very helpful if our pages get out of order, for example. Now that's 2 slides per layout. The one that I like and that you are probably accustomed to is 3 slides, because 3 slides, and this might be a quiz question. I seem to recall this being a quiz question. Oh my goodness, was this a quiz question? This was a quiz question. 3 slides per handout. Look at what it gives us. The slide is much smaller, and you need to be aware of that. So if you have some details like a chart that you're trying to get people to look at, they're probably not going to be able to see it too well. Look how small all these bullets are on this. But what it does provide that I really like is some lines for note taking right there next to the slides. Again, we've got our footer and our page number that we can see. So that's 3 lines. Once you start to get into, 4, 6, 9 slides, I mean, let's just look at 9. You can see how important the numbers are at this point, because how do I know if I'm just getting this handout if you printed the slides so that they would go across, and that was horizontal, or vertical? And which is your preference? Well, sometimes it depends to me if you want to cover part of it with a sheet of paper and then slowly reveal. Sometimes those things are important. So the slides As you can see, pretty tiny at this point. Lots of room for note taking, just no grid lines, no rule lines for you to follow. All right, so I'm going to go back to full page slides because that's what they didn't tell us to make any of those changes, but I wanted you to be able to see, and you'll notice on the full page slide, no footer, right? Well, not on page 1. This is page 4. Right? So you can see it treats this view differently than some of the other views. Let's go back to look at our work, and let's go back to our instructions. Step number 19, and you see what the final step is. So we are right here at the end. It's always important to check your presentation for possible spelling errors. Yes, it is. You are well versed in this. We're going to go to PowerPoint. You know I like to start at the very first slide, at the top of the Word document, at the top of the Excel page. I'm going to start at the top of the slide. Where are we doing this? Review, because it's one of the last things we do to double check. It's the first button because it's so important. Sure enough, they found an error actually just in our notes. Let me tell you why this is important. The notes may not only be for you. Sometimes people print the speaker notes as part of their handout, and they use that to distribute their speech. Also, you can publish PowerPoint presentations in a web page format, so you can publish them out onto an internal company server or out to the general public internet. In those cases, the notes are visible, so keep that in mind, that depending on how you control the distribution of this presentation, these notes could be visible. So yes, the spell check of that is important. They found an error, change. Now here, career builder is a proper noun, and they've got it right here, so change. Spell check complete. Alrighty, 2 changes, looks good. Gonna save that. Gonna go back to my instructions. And what's the last step of the instructions? And that is to submit. So you know what I'm going to do, right? Close everything. Did I say I'd double check? I need to save. Close, close, close. Do not be in PowerPoint. Close out of PowerPoint. Now, again, as a reminder, we're in a process of change where My IT Lab is going to be embedded into Pause, but it may not be embedded yet in the semester that you're watching this video. I hope it is, but it may not be. So if you have been told use links inside of Pause, that means that My IT Lab is embedded into Pause, and you're going to use those links to submit your work. If that hasn't happened, and for fall 2022 it hasn't happened, okay, that I know. So I know now. I didn't know when we started these recordings. So you will need to go to myitlab.com and upload your work. I'm going to pause the video while I go there. So here we are at this moment of truth. You know how to submit these files, so I'm going to choose File. Look, I'm still in the Excel folder, so make sure you navigate. And just that reminder of how important it is to change to the next folder. Find not the jobs file, right? This has to be the file that has your last name at the start. Open, upload. A word of caution, PowerPoint files are big. They contain pictures, they contain a lot of information, and so they are large files. Be patient and allow time for this to upload. Once it's uploaded and you get the success, and you need to wait for that, then submit. The grading may take longer also. Again, these are large files. Oh, that was fast. Oh, look at that. Woohoo! 100%. I hope you enjoy PowerPoint. We have so much more to show in the chapters ahead. It's powerful and it's fun. So I hope you enjoy this part of the term and applying all your skills. Thanks, folks.